You're listening to Hellblazer Biz with Chris Gordon.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, listeners, wherever you are in the world right now. This is Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz. Today I am proud to bring to you the writer and creator of Pegasus Bridge, along with one of the lead cast members who plays Richard Todd, the casting director, and also one of the other producers. We get a group session. Without further ado, I shall bring to you Pegasus Bridge.
So hello, you're here with four people on the Pegasus Bridge feature film. Myself, Lance Nielson, the writer-director.
Jake Francis, actor, playing Richard Todd in the movie.
Alex Tabrizi, I'm one of the producers working on social media.
Sharon Sorrentino, casting director.
There you go. And Alex is also doing a really small cameo role because he does do a bit of acting from time to time. Who are you playing in the film briefly?
Private Cunningham.
Private Cunningham. That role was literally just listed as Commando in the original script. And an interesting story was that some guy wrote to us whose father was in the Commandos, Lovett's Commandos. Mm-hmm. He said, my father was like a scout attached to Lovett's headquarters, and he would constantly report back to Lovett what was going on up ahead.
Right.
And I said, that's interesting, because we've got a character that does exactly that. Okay, we'll call him Private Cunningham. So that's how that character went from Private Nobody, extra effectively, to Private Cunningham. And it's only a small part, but Alex is playing that role. And in fact, he met Mr. Cunningham's son.
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
Oh, right, awesome.
We've got quite a lot of interaction going on with the families of the soldiers, so that's pretty good.
All right, no, brilliant. So that's one of my questions, actually. So
that's a nice little story for you to kick off your interview.
Yeah, lovely.
So
that is great. It's a nice, to be able to expand like that through working and researching. It must be pretty impressive, especially for you, Alex, to be able to, not you go through there and suddenly find yourself a named character and you're actually named after someone who's there as well, as Jake is.
Yeah, and it's important because all the actors on the film are playing real people. Yeah, it's so important for us to get it right and do them the maximum respect we can do because their families will be watching and we've got to get it right. It's very important. Very different to playing a made-up character.
There's no fictional characters in the film at all, is there? Really? I mean, there's a couple of unnamed German privates and whatnot. Even most of them are real characters.
And no amalgamation of roles, I might add, which would have made my life a lot easier for numbers. But I absolutely respect Lance for doing this. So all the roles are there. There's been no amalgamation of the people that were there.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on us to do that quite early on.
Yeah.
And we realised if we started putting fictional names in, we'd have to go either all the names were going to be fictional or they were all going to be real. You couldn't do some fictional amalgamation and some real characters because otherwise relative A is going to go, well, why is Private...
Where's my granddad?
Yeah, where's my granddad in it? And so we've put as many people in it as we can. The person that fired that Piat at that tank or that Piat at that boat is that person. So that meant we ended up with a cast of 76 speaking parts and I think it went up from about 45 to that during the writing process. So but it couldn't be helped, but no regrets.
Right,
at least not yet.
No, that sounds great. I mean, I'll say before I start rolling in, so these questions have you got anyone from the Phantom Corps in there? I don't know if they actually were with the 6th Airborne Division, but I know they kind of helped. They did a lot of forward communications as well. But I've got no idea historically if they were 6th Air. My granddad was Phantom Corps, and he worked with David Niven behind the Alliance in Belgium and stuff. But I've got no idea whether they were on D-Day.
David Niven and Richard Burton were my two favourite actors when I was a kid.
Awesome.
And I remember the first time I really cried as a kid, being the soppy person that I am, was when David Niven died. I will never forget that. And they showed Paper Tiger as a dedication for him that night. And I was all the way through. Because he looked a lot like my father. So they really look similar. Mm-hmm. But no, to answer your question, they're not in the film. The three Allied units that are in the film are 7th Parachute Battalion, part of the 6th Airborne Division, the Ox and Bucks, who landed on the gliders, glider infantry, Lovett's Commandos, and then we've got some characters from the 6th Airborne Division as well, like General Gale, Montgomery turns up, Rommel turns up in the film, and then we've got all the German commanders that were involved in the battle too. So those are the units that are involved in the first kind of 48 hours of fighting.
Yeah.
So those are the units that are there.
Ah, fantastic.
We still haven't been able to include everybody. I'm aware that there were lots of little units racing to the bridge, like engineers and various different people, and you can't include everyone.
God no, you'd have a production of thousands.
And a film that would be 9 hours long.
Oh yeah, exactly. If you follow every single person on it.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't make sense, does it? If you then follow actually all the historical bits, if you have that much detail, there's no actual narrative because your brain can't. Yeah, you just.
Becomes more of a documentary.
Yeah.
And we are asking the audience already to invest quite heavily emotionally in a lot of people, and that was always one of my concerns. But I had quite a lot of critical people read the script, including Alan Tompkins, who was the art director on Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, two things you may have heard of.
Oh, yeah.
Bridge Too Far, and he worked on Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, all sorts. He'd been so helpful, and he would have done art direction for us if he wasn't like 90 or whatever. He's quite old anyway.
Yeah, that's still some fantastic advice to get from him, though.
Yeah, and he read the script very early on, and came back and said, "This is amazing how you've managed to pull this off with so many people in it." But I was able to follow all of it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a similar model to Bridge Too Far. It's a big selection of a lot of different characters, jumping around from different points in the battle. So it's that kind of template. It's an ensemble cast with a couple of standout leads, but predominantly an ensemble piece. So next question.
Yeah, sorry, I'll start. Kind of gone half these without any questions I've even thought of, so this is great.
Right.
The first one is for yourself, Lance. Obviously, you're the creative mind behind Pegasus Bridge, and you've got a nice resume with productions. Homeless Ashes is one, The Journey and others. What made you want to bring Pegasus Bridge to life?
Well, I need to say at the outset that World War II as a genre does interest me, but it's not the only genre of film that I want to make. So I've got a list of about 10 films I want to do in my lifetime, and only 2 of them are war movies. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to do one definitely from a very British point of view, and I always remembered the way it was portrayed in The Longest Day, and that was the film that got me interested in D-Day.
Yeah, fantastic film.
It was probably, I can't remember which movie I saw first. It was either that or Kelly's Heroes. Right. And that got me into World War II, and then and then D-Day being the more historical of those 2 films. Mm-hmm. And that just kind of that nugget kind of stuck there. And then the moment I decided was back in 2011 when Mark Simonich, who's a war games designer, a good friend of mine, he's designed a couple of D-Day games. I think I've got one of them's behind me somewhere up there. And he invited me on a D-Day tour, and on the first day we went to Pegasus Bridge and the Pegasus Bridge Museum. Yeah. And that was when I decided. It was actually when I was walking around the museum, and I thought, it needs to be another film. There needs to be a film just about this event, just about planning for this operation, and that was the moment I thought, this is the next film I'm going to do. I was prepping The Journey then, and that was when I decided this was going to be the next one.
Oh no, fair enough. That's quite cool as well. You say obviously you wanted to do the British side, because I think, with all the respect in the world, there's been so many things about the American sides. I think Band of Brothers is probably, in my eyes, is probably one of the best war series we've ever seen. But it just purely focuses. You get a tiny little glimpse of the British in there. And I can't help but feeling people...
mate, isn't that the line?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And Montgomery's that's so overrated. Things like that. And it was just like, the only times you actually mention the British, you're putting us down, but we didn't fight and do a hell of a good job before that. Speaking of Montgomery, when I found out recently as well, my great-granddad was Montgomery's Batman in World War I before he was a big general. Yeah, I was quite impressed at that.
Wow.
Amazing. Good.
Yeah.
Did you see who we have playing Montgomery in the film? Because we've cast that part.
Have you? No, I haven't seen that one yet.
We've got Phil Davis tentatively, subject to everything falling into place and being available, but he's signed on board. Nice. Intending to play that role, and or what we call an LOI in the business.
Yes.
So and I mean it's great. I've he lives in the same area as me, and I kept bumping into him. And I saw him in a film called Wall of Silence. I mean, I knew him from films like ID and things like that, but in Wall of Silence, he was like the lead detective trying to solve this horrific murder in South London, a true story. And he really was amazing in that piece. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, God, I really want to work with this guy one day.
Yeah.
So Sharon and I were looking at actors who were the sort of right look and physique for Montgomery,
and feel,
and we feel, and somebody who could carry off the part as well. And and I wanted an actor who was respected and people knew in the industry, and we thought of him. And I asked him if he'd do it, and he read the script in one night, came back to me the next night and said, "Yeah, I'm in. I'm up for it." So that's
what I like.
So
that was great. That was my answer to your question. Sorry, a bit long-winded.
No, that's cool. Nice answer. A nice person, good actor to get in there as well. Because Montgomery's big shoes to fill.
Yes, indeed. Phil Davis is going to do a great job playing him, assuming it all works out timing-wise.
Excellent. Excellent. The next question I've got is, we kind of briefly touched on it before, is I was actually privileged to be in Normandy for the 60th anniversary of D-Day. Like yourself, you've been on a tour around there, and it was one of the most moving and experiences I've ever had. I mean, I was in floods of tears most of the time walking around, and I mean, there's one scene on the beach. It was Omaha Beach, and the press came round because there was a Fallschirmjäger, a veteran, and he was on the beach because obviously those guys are coming to remember as well, because they've got just as much right to go and remember. And he was on the beach, and the press were all around him because he had all these badges and medals and everything on. And the press were hounding him, and basically a couple of reenactors, one in a British para uniform and one in an American para uniform, came, threw the paparazzi aside, put their arms around the guy, and there's a lovely photo of the reenactors, the veteran in the middle, an American and a Brit on either side, yesterday's enemies, today's friends, and it's stuck with. I've got goosebumps thinking about that, seeing that moment myself, because it's stuck with me. So my question...
We saw a German guy, didn't we?
A German veteran.
Yeah.
Veteran in Normandy he was SS as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was SS Hitler Youth.
Right.
From the 12th, I want to say 12th SS, I think.
I think it was a 12th.
And he was involved in fighting round in the American sector, and he was there, and that was interesting. Sorry, anyway, you had a question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, part of that was the fact that, because Bush and Blair were there, I had coaches of British veterans couldn't get to the beaches they landed on the actual day. So I got to sit at Merville Battery and ended up sitting chatting to these guys for several hours, and it was the best experience ever. So leading on to that and the research that you guys have done, have you actually had the chance to talk to any of the veterans? I mean, they're all sadly at that age now, I think, where they're starting to pass away, or they already have passed away. I know you've worked with families.
We were out with D-Day this year, and we got a chance to speak to a lot of the veterans out there, and just as you say, it is heartbreaking and fascinating, and the stories they tell, it is, I don't think you can experience it yourself, just from them telling you the stories. I mean, you see them standing up at the memorial services, and some of them can hardly stand, they're on crutches, they're standing there, they're holding themselves up, and you can see in their eyes they're still there, That's for us. That one guy. We did one of the memorials at Pegasus Bridge, and one of the guys, you could see he was still there, and that made me. I remember we were both like a massive apple in my throat. Alex has interviewed a lot of them, so he should chip in here.
Yeah, no, I was thinking as well. We met quite a few veterans, and one of them, just thinking about the humility of them, they're just completely down to earth. There was one guy in particular, part of 7th Para we've met, who I've interviewed before,
Ron Perry?
No, not Ron Perry.
Okay.
Nick Archdale.
Oh yeah, Nick Archdale.
And he was really batting the cameras away, or the publicity or the press, but you felt that he was there for other people and for his friends and his fallen comrades, really.
Yeah.
He didn't really he kind of shunned the limelight a bit. And speaking to a lot of these veterans, that's the core thread between all of them. They're just very down to earth. They'll give you the account. They won't big themselves up in any way, embellish it. Yeah. It was just very matter of fact to them. It was really amazing.
I mean, actually, when we were interviewing Ron Perry, because I was there for that interview, I was asking him about did he shoot anybody? confirmed kills, and he said yeah, and he went into detail about a firefight he had just outside of Le Port, which is all